everybody. Welcome to session one of the Certified Associate in Project Management. My name is Ashley Hunt. Hello, Tori. What's up, David? Hi. Good to see everybody. Welcome to class. Very first thing that we're going to talk about is sort of how this is going to go. I know it's the very first day, but we're going to be going through the Certified Associate in Project Management, in general, an exam prep. So do me a favor and just chat in and let me know. Are you planning on taking the CAPM? And if so, when? And if you don't know, and if you're like, yeah, I don't really know, because we're on the cusp of a change. Hi, is it Eliza or Elisa? Let me know. When do you plan on taking the exam, if you plan on taking it? Sometimes people come to this class because they want best practices in predictive project management. So February, not planning to take, just here for info. Yes, Mike, but shortly after these classes, no set date required to certify by your organization. Okay, have not decided. All right, perfect. The reason I'm bringing it up is and I don't have an exact date for you because PMI has not given us an exact date. But this exam, the Certified Associate in Project Management, is slated to change in early 2023. What does that mean for you? What that means is the content that we're covering in this class is still going to be relevant. The difference is that PMI is adding aspects of agile project management to the CAPM exam to kind of mirror what's going on with the project management professional and also what's going on in the industry. So this entire class, this entire exam, until it changes, early 2023 could be March. We don't have a date yet, but I would say that if you are planning on taking it, try and get it knocked out like January, early February, if you can. If you cannot, just feel free. I'm going to give you my email address. So jot this down. You can use it for whatever you want if you have questions or anything. But what I would say is if we get past that sort of early 2023, we're February, sort of middle of February, shoot me an email and say, hey, has the exam changed yet? You can always go out to pmi.org. It's probably going to be easier if you just shoot me an email and I can say, here's the date that the exam is going to change. So I don't want you to be like, I got to get this done in 2 weeks. You don't. But the holidays are coming up, the first of the year, that kind of thing. I wanted to throw that out there now to let you know that what you're covering in this class is still going to be relevant on the new exam. It's just that PMI is adding aspects of agile to it. Anybody familiar with agile? And if not, it's okay. If you're like, we're hybrid, that's okay. If you're fully predictive, that's what we're covering in class as well. Okay, if you do have some experience in agile, you could pretty much roll with the exam as well. But I would say just reach out to me when you're gearing up for your exam to just ask me, has anything changed? The reason all of these things are happening in the industry is because the Project Management Institute pushes out what are called role delineation studies. Every 3 years, they send out these surveys to project managers around the world and say, hey, what are you actually using? What are you using as far as best practices? And they started to see some change in the industry to be more hybrid or be more agile. And if you're not familiar with agile, it's okay. You don't need to be for this particular exam. But because of the changes in the industry, PMI updates their exams every 3 years or so. But this particular class is 100% predictive. Do me another favor, please, and chat in, what is your job role? What is your job role and industry? And that helps me as we go through this because I might not always get it right. But I try and use some examples of best practices because this is really perfect world project management. Some of the things that we'll talk about, you might be thinking, I'd never use that. I never have used that. I never want to use that, but it might be on the exam, All right, so marketing coordinator, big tech, awesome. Systems admin, IT systems ad, project manager for IT healthcare, architect, project manager, director, info security. So a lot of that, especially like architect, that kind of thing, mostly predictive types of projects, right? Maybe healthcare with all the regulatory compliance, that kind of thing. IT, there might be a little bit of that hybrid, more agile thing going on. IT systems admin, project manager. Awesome. So let me formally welcome you to the Certified Associate in Project Management. This is a 2-hour class. At the top of the hour, we do take a 10-minute break. Everything that you see during this class is being recorded. It's being recorded by topic. And that's nice because let's say a month goes by and you just want to go back and review like the risks section. You can just scroll on campus down to that topic and review it as needed. Or you get pulled out for a meeting. It happens, right? Project managers is like, I got to go put out a fire. That's okay because everything's being recorded and you can always reach out to me with any questions. Every day after class, I upload those recordings, but it does take about 24 hours to get scrubbed and onto your campus. When we take the break at the top of the hour, the timer is going to count down from 10 silently, 10 minutes to 0. It's silent. You didn't lose your audio or anything, but it does stop the recording because who wants to sit there and review a break timer? So I'll try and stop at normal breaking points, but sometimes videos will be split into part 1 and part 2. Sometimes the content's a bit more in depth, and therefore that's going to be something that we have to split up. The live class goes in order of what are called knowledge areas. And essentially what that means is we cover all of scope, and then all of schedule, and then all of cost. And what that does is help compartmentalize process and best practices. It's also how this exam is scored on your understanding of, scope best practices and procurement best practices and things like that. So it's compartmentalized. Sometimes that's easier for people to learn that way. Other times they're like, why isn't in the order of a project? I think the updates to the new content will be much more in the order of, let's say, a project. But in this case, we have to design it so PMI approves it based on how they want the content presented. Are you familiar at all with the project management body of knowledge? The PMBOK guide, as we affectionately call it. If you're not, that's okay. You don't need a book or anything like that for class. You can download the slides from campus if you decide you want to follow along with the slides, but you don't necessarily need to have a PMBOK guide. So David says yes. Yes, you're familiar. Anybody else? And if not, if you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, the Project Management Body of Knowledge PMBOK guide is put out by the Project Management Institute as an overview of best practices. In this case, predictive project management. Like you have it somewhere. That's all right. You don't need it unless you really want to go back and review it. But the guide is currently in the 7th edition. No, Tori is saying, yeah, I have the 7th edition. Is that going to be an issue? The 7th edition is more for the PMP now than this iteration of the CAPM. But I do think that if you want to join the Project Management Institute for 1 year, you'll get a discount on your exams, and you should still be able to download the 6th edition. And that's going to be the book that you want for this exam. PMI is retiring the 6th edition, right? And it's sort of in some way, shape, or form already retired. But because the CAPM is still based on the 6th edition, the ability to obtain a 6th edition will not go away until this exam changes. Anybody a member of the Project Management Institute? If not, you don't have to be. It's just a way of, 1, you get a discount. 2, you can join chapters. Plus, you get to download some of these other standards plus that they have out there, best practices and so on, and you can still get the 6th edition. We're in a really weird transition time with PMI right now. Will you need the book to prep for the exam? Not necessarily, unless you learn by reading. If you learn by reading, then it might be something that you want to go back and review. For other people, they're just like, no, I learn better being in a live class, taking practice exams, that kind of thing. So no, you're not going to actually need the book. It's just if you want the book, it's a searchable PDF and you can download it for free. Whether or not you can get a hard copy anymore, it depends on supply and what PMI's got out there. I can certainly check Amazon, see if there's, one out there if you want a hard copy. Most of the time I would say you don't need a book at all. You go through the course, you have the recordings, you do the practice exams, that kind of thing. Sometimes people like to have the guide just to go back through and read certain chapters. But if you are a member You can go in and download it. Let me know if you have trouble doing that. If you're not a member and you want to be a member, I mean, you might as well get the free download of the 6th and the 7th edition. If you don't have a physical copy and want one, they come up on eBay for cheap fairly often. Excellent. Yeah, point. Yeah, for sure. And because it's being retired, it's probably super duper cheap if you want one in a hard copy version. So those are sort of the options as far as if you want one of the PMBOK guides. But as mentioned, they're going to go more toward the 7th in the new iteration of this exam. But there is an intro video on demand for additional information. Essentially what that is, and it's not like you have to do it before class starts. So if you're like, whoa, what do you mean there's pre-work? Don't worry about it. Essentially what that is the intro. It's the first 3 chapters of the Project Management Body of Knowledge 6th edition. Has to do with things like project selection and so on. Yes, testable, but it's pretty overview information. Or what's the definition of a project? Temporary, unique, some easier content that's on demand that you can go through at your leisure, or you don't have to go through it prior to class. I would highly recommend reviewing it at some point. We jump right into chapter 4. Yes, it totally counts toward the required hours. Any time that you spend in the live class, any time you spend going through on-demand videos, absolutely counts toward the contact hours that you need to sit the exam, for sure. Yep, anything. And this entire course has been approved by PMI for all the credits. So like I said, you didn't have to do that before you came in today. But the actual exam is scored on the understanding of those knowledge areas. So we've got scope and schedule and cost and quality and all of those that we're going through. Anytime you see teeny tiny print, like at the bottom here, that is just a page reference. That's a citation from the 6th edition digital version. The only reason that that is there is in order for PMI to approve for contact hours, we have to reference page numbers because it's registered trademarked information. That's really just for our purposes, accounting purposes. You don't need to follow along in the PMBOK guide if you don't want to. And in fact, I think it'd make it more confusing if you tried to do that in the class. But now there have been some changes up to this point. Obviously, you know, the new content for the CAPM exam is going to be coming out the week of December 5th. So the next live CAPM class, this exam changes. We have not gotten the approval to push out the new content yet. So PMI is like, no, we haven't changed the exam. We don't have an exam date yet. We just know it's going to be early 2023. So the content that you're going through in this class is applicable to the current exam. But what they've done is process fewer application requirements, which is nice because when you go out and you fill out an application on pmi.org, it's not as in-depth or difficult to fill out as it used to be. PMI just wants to make sure that you've submitted the application. It's got your information on it, like your name, what your job role is, those kinds of things. It's not as intense or in-depth as it used to be. It's a little bit easier to do. They've eliminated your work experience necessity. It used to be that you'd have 1,500 hours of project management experience. You could literally be brand new, just graduated from college or high school, and have zero experience in project management and still be able to go through and actually take the exam. They designed it as a springboard to get, project management experience, get a certification under your belt, and then at the same time kind of use that to gain your experience and then sit the PMP. If you want to. You don't have to. But the